All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. We are going to pick up where we left off on the last stream with some more editor stuff, although less bug fixing tonight and more adding new things. So I started thinking about some of the things I want to get into the editor, and we're going to sort of work on that tonight. And we're going to kind of start, or I should say continue laying the backbone of a little bit more of our editor functionality. But before we get into that, I do want to just take a quick second and thank the supporters of our channel, beginning with the highest tier of subscription, which is the Elite Partner, and that is Javier Alazaran, followed by our partners Gerbolis Inc. and Matt Osgard. That is the second tier there of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon, followed by the list of supporters you see here scrolling past the screen. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships and Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It helps me out a lot, means a great deal to me, and helps me with the process of, handling expenses with the channel, things like that, software licenses, hosting fees, eventually assets, things of that nature. So thank you all very much for that support. In addition to that, I would like to extend a large thank you to all of you guys, the viewers, whether you're joining us here live on the YouTube side or the Twitch side, or if you're catching the VOD after the fact. Thank you guys so much for being here, because without you guys, this channel and this project would not exist. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Spiro, you are indeed first. What's going on, buddy? Joe Crunch 37, good to see you as well. Hello. Hope you're doing well. All right. So, things I want to touch on tonight is, obviously you can see here actually from what I've got pulled up, is I want to touch on the selection list. But before we get into that, one of the things that you need to be able to do in an editor is to be able to add stuff, right? And so I kind of started playing around with this a little bit off camera just to kind of get an idea of how I wanted it to work. And I think I've got it most of the way, although we're going to have to add and tweak some things to actually make this work the way that I think it should. But here's the basic idea. So we've added a console command called editor add model. And that takes right now 3 arguments. I do want to make it take 2 arguments, with the last one being optional. But basically the idea is that it takes the name of the entity that we're going to be creating, followed by the asset name with spaces. So that should be able to take quoted string as well, which I don't 100% know that we have. I don't think we do. So we'll need to add that to our console. And then also the package name. So the first example that I can use here is we can add the barrels model, right? We're just going to call the entity itself barrels, and then it's in the Shadows of Illumina package. So the way that this works is, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub, Axorus. Appreciate that. Thank you very much for the support. Abel over on the YouTube side, Happy New Year to you as well. And Happy New Year to all of you guys, the viewers out there. We did do a stream into New Year's last night. Just barely, but, we did do it. But yeah, 2026, it's going to bring lots of good things for us. At least that's what I'm hoping. All right, so let's go ahead and load up a scene here. And so this is the same scene we've been looking at. And so we should be able to, with this new command, essentially type in this command text that we have here. So I should be able to drop this down and go editor, add model, and then the name of the model, which is going to be barrels, or the name of the entity rather, followed by the name of the model, asset name. So barrels, and then Shadows of Illumina as the package name. And when we enter that, we should see a new entity spawn into the scene, which it does, which is awesome. And then we can select that, move it around, and so forth. And so that's going to provide the backbone of how we actually need to make this work. In fact, I'm going to go ahead, just for proof of concept here, I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then I'm going to exit the application. And I'm going to relaunch. and load that scene back up. And if we just run our character over here, we will see that the new entity is there and loaded, right? So all of that works. We have all the things in place that we need to, start adding entities and so forth. Now, obviously, the way to do this is not going to be, to sort of have to open up the console to do this. That's sort of the back end that we're going to be using underneath of our UI system. So we're going to write some things to help us make that a little bit easier. But that is at least the first part of it. Now, one thing I would like to point out is I think for convenience purposes, whenever we add an entity, we should have the ability also to go ahead and automatically select that thing so that we can immediately start interacting with it and not have to sort of find it in the scene. It's always going to spawn at 000, and I think I'm fine with that for now. We do have console commands to actually move that around. Again, we're going to hook that up to the UI in the near future. But if we take a look at zone 00, and we go all the way to the bottom, I think it's going to be all the way to the bottom. There it is. In fact, let me move that up so it's not behind my head. So here is the new entity that we loaded in and serialized to the scene. In fact, you can actually see where we, change the transform and all that good stuff. So I'm going to remove that for now because we're going to need to go ahead and do lots of iterations on this. So we don't actually want to save that. I just wanted to sort of show you guys that it works from end to end, so to speak. Dr. Elliott, good to see you. How have you been? Selection, yes. Selection is it was a task, let me tell you. We had lots of things to work out in terms of selection bugs, and I assume we're probably going to have a lot more. Happy New Year, small gift. I really appreciate that, Axorus. Thank you. Nivy Me, good to see you as well. How are you? Singy over on the YouTube side, good to see you as well. Knock on wood, yeah. Right. Yeah, that's the hope, right? Is hopefully the new year is going to bring some good things for all of us. Okay, so one thing that I want to play around with first is I want to actually figure out this bit here with the quoted strings, right? So our asset manifest actually has the capability to have some of these, let's see, barrels, actually has the capability to have names with spaces in them, right? So we could say here, if we wanted to, barrels model. Whoops. And that is a completely valid string to have, right? And we should allow that. Theoretically, the model name should allow that, right? So the asset name, rather. The name of the entity should allow that. And technically speaking, the package name should allow that, although I don't know if I'm actually going to do that or not. Whoa. Axorus, thank you very much. And did I just see that that's a golden Kappa train? I think I did. Holy crap. Thank you so much for those subs. And there's a golden Kappa train. So yeah, if you guys want the golden Kappa emote on Twitch, go ahead and I think you have to do 100 bits or a sub, I think, in order to go ahead and get that. So yeah, feel free to spread the word wherever you know. If anybody wants a golden Kappa emote, you guys have kicked off a golden Kappa hype train, which is pretty awesome. I've only actually seen that twice, which is pretty crazy stuff. Let's see, is there anywhere I could even like mention that? I guess I could put it on X. Give me 1 second. Might as well tweet about it, right? All right. Alex NK Dev, how's it going? Good to see you as well. Welcome. Yeah, so thank you very much for those gift subs. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Spent New Year fixing critical bugs in my parser code. Ooh, I get that. Yeah, I had to fix a couple critical bugs in the bounding volume hierarchy. I had some things that were being that were using zeros where they shouldn't have been. It was causing some really nasty bugs, which was directly breaking my selection. So, all right. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Okay. So, with all that said, Spiro, do you know anywhere that is good for like advertising like a golden Kappa train to let people know that it's golden? Because it's like, I don't see those very often. And I feel like people would want the emote. All right. What genre is Shadows of Olympus going to be? It is going to be a action RPG, and it's going to be isometric, 3D isometric. And by that, I just mean it's going to have a camera angle that's reminiscent of the old isometric games like this, right? And it's not necessarily always going to be that way. There'll be cutscenes with different camera angles and stuff like that, curated camera angles in some cases, but for the most part, this is how we're going to be playing the game, is just like this. Gotta play to your core audience when it happens. X and Discord. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why didn't I think about pinging Discord? Good point. All right. And then, yeah, I guess, let's see. Oh, thank you, Trash Can. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that tier 1 sub. Very much appreciated. All right. All right. It's been a bit since I've seen you. How have you been, by the way? Okay, so you're saying, Dr. Elliott, what are all those debug lines? Debug lines. Oh, you mean the, you're talking about like all the squares and stuff? So what you're looking at here is, essentially all of these red lines are part of the bounding volume hierarchy. And so essentially the, trying to remember, is it the lighter squares are at the higher level and the darker squares are at the lower level, or it might actually be backwards from that. I can't remember. But basically these show, how the bounding volume hierarchy is actually split up. And you can see there's a massive one, out there surrounding the water plane. Pawn Theory, thank you so much for the 5 subs. I appreciate that. For the 5 tier 1 gift subs. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Looks like you guys pushed it to a level 3. Nope, it's level 3. Awesome. Thank you guys for that support. Very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you guys got a gifted sub, definitely toss a thank you to Axorus or Pawn Theory, for sure. So anyways, what we're looking at here is Psycho, you dodged it. Yeah, that's like me. I'm really good at dodging gift subs, for sure. 100p. Okay, so anyways, so the red ones are sort of the top layer bounding volumes that contain other bounding volumes, right? As the tree sort of works its way down. And then the cyan nodes that you see are leaves of that particular, of the tree. I couldn't dodge it that time. Pawn Theory, thank you for gifting a sub to Psycode. You got him. It's hilarious. I love it. Psycode's over there like... wasted. So yeah, the cyan ones here are the leaves of the BVH, right? So it's ultimately the things that are selectable. So the red ones aren't really selectable. The red boxes rather aren't selectable. The blue ones are. And then what we do is once we do a raycast into the BVH, we say which one of these things do we hit, and then we do a little bit more of a specific check within that. Depending on what type of entity it is. So if it's a mesh like this one, we'll actually do a triangle hit check on that mesh. So something like, let me go over here to this tree, for example. So this tree that exists here, if I click the actual tree itself, because the raycast connected with that geometry there, it goes ahead and selects it. If I were to click like over here, instead of, not actually hitting that, then it doesn't do that. So it only does the check on the geometry if you actually click in the bounding volume hierarchy node that's associated with it. And as you can see here, some of my extents aren't exactly correct. So this tree is offset for some reason, so I've got some work to do around that. But it works, right? And then for other things like this is a spawn point, so if the ray collides with that sphere, then it goes ahead and selects that particular node. And then this one here is a volume that happens to be spherical in shape, so it's kind of the same thing. This one's a sound emitter. This one is a light, and so if we actually move this light around, you can actually see. How it sort of does the thing. We can select the parent node and move that around too. So yeah, that's what all that debug stuff is. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So, with that, the next thing that I want to do is sort of figure out the selection, right? And that's kind of what I was doing here. Let's see, let me go down here. So the way that this works currently is we have this editor on button callback that's made whenever a mouse button is clicked. In this case, we check for the release of the mouse button. We check that it's the left mouse button. And then we do a raycast into the scene. And let's see, right there. And so we raycast into the scene and then take any of our hits, determine whether we're doing multi-selection or not, go through the hits, check the data of those hits to see whether or not they qualify, and then add them to our selection list. And then finally down here, we actually go through and we say, let's set our editor gizmo to the actual thing that we have selected. And we do have some hacks in here where we're only taking the first one for now because a selection, like multi-selection or group selections and modifying multiple entities at once is going to have to be something that we add later because it's a little bit more complicated. Anyway, let me see. Okay. Let's see. Happy New Year. Does Kohi support autogen LOD of meshes so that LODs from far from the camera can be can be visible, but lower to improve performance. So we don't support that automatically now. I have done some work to support that for terrains, which we're not currently rendering. And I will have that for meshes, although at the moment I don't have that either. And I don't think I'm actually going to need it for this game, because this game is going to be sort of an isometric perspective projection. And so at least not right away. I'm not going to need it right away. So it is something on my list to add, but it is not something that is like critical at the moment, because we're not really looking far off into the distance at the moment. But we have done some stuff with that when it comes to terrain generation previously in the series. I admire how Age of Empires rendered 200 players with the X-ray outline effect in later 90s hardware. Tried doing something similar and have hard time hitting over 1K FPS. Yeah, they pulled some secrets back then for sure. RTX 3060 laptop OpenGL instance drawing. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like it highly depends on what you're doing too, as to what optimizations you should put in place. So like for me, LODs don't really make all that much sense because of the camera angle that we're going to be operating at. So I'm not really putting any effort into that. Instance drawing is not something I actually have yet. It's something we're definitely going to need at some point, I assume. But again, it's like I just add stuff as we kind of need it. Now you have a golden kappa. Nice. Yeah. Complete at level 4, 43%. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again, guys, for the support on there. Here's the golden kappa. Yeah, I haven't seen that come across very often, so that's pretty cool. All right, so essentially the way that this works is we actually need to change this, or at least make it a little bit more generic in terms of how we do it. So in the editor, we actually have select entities. And then what this basically does is it says, okay, we have accounts and an array of entities that we want to select. Select those things. We can also select the parent of the current selected entity, right? We could probably also have something in here that goes something like add to selected entities, right? So there's like select entities will clear the list, and then add to selected entities will add to that list. And it's always going to take like a count of entities in an entity list. And let's actually just go here. Let's go here, and actually we can see if we can get, oops. We can go here and see if we can get all of the functions or all of the logic sort of in one place. So this always clears the list, and then if we have a count of 0, we say we return. I wonder if we should. I'm actually thinking we could actually take all of this code and move it down here. And then do editor add to selected entity. Why did that not? Oh, nice. Did my... I think my code completion just completely pooped itself. All right, so add to selected entities. Add to selected entities. We'll pass the states of the counts and the entities to that. And then we'll have this function do all the heavy lifting, right? So this guy is not actually going to clear the selection at all. So we can actually, I guess, just do this. Select entities. Yeah, and then I guess we could also have, instead of calling this, let's also have editor clear selected entities, right? And that's just going to be a call that essentially wipes the selection list. Oops. Just so that we can actually do that a little bit better than actually like directly modifying the selection list ourselves. Right, so we can actually literally just do that, right? And in fact, we don't even need to do if counts or any of that stuff. We can actually just literally keep it to that. And then here we can say, so select entities should do editor clear selected entities state. Should always clear the selection, right? And then from there, we go ahead and add to selected entities, right? Whereas this does not automatically clear that selection. And then I think I was kind of thinking around some stuff like, do we force single select for now or whatnot? Which I think we should do. So essentially the idea here is if we pass a list greater than 1, we're just going to ignore it for now. We're only going to take the first one. But we want to take the first one that qualifies. So I guess what that technically means is, you know, does it already contain that selection, which should always be false, but, you know, that's an easy thing that we can add in here for now. So we will say the max is equal to count. And then let me just actually, let me do that. And we'll say if the count is greater than 1, then we'll say, you know, max equals 1. And I guess we don't really need to even do this check. Come to think of it, we could actually just, well, yeah, that's fine. We don't really need to, I guess, output that log message. So essentially what we do is we go through the selection list. Wait a minute. No, not the selection list. We want entities. Right, so we're going to say entities sub s, and then we'll go ahead and get the name so that we can actually output its info. And then we'll go ahead and say if this contains the entity, then we'll go ahead and push that into the selection list, and then increment added. And as long as added is less than max, we'll keep going, right? And then we're also forcing single select here when it comes to the transform set. So we can put here to do perhaps create some temp transform that can be used to edit multiple transforms. Actually, I don't think we even want to do that. I think what we should probably do is set the gizmo to an average position of all selected entity transforms, and apply the modifications to transforms individually, but together. Right? So that's the way that's going to work. But for now, we're only going to take the first one. So we have add to selected entities. Let's see. Should we even bother with this here, or should we Now I'm thinking about this actually is kind of... I guess we can always just add to it, right? I guess that is fine. We're just going to... The real hack is down here. So we can say max equals counts. So I guess we could actually just do... We could actually just do that. We can always add them, but we'll only ever act on the first one. And the only time that'll be cleared is if we call this guy. Or if we call clear first. So up here, this will allow us to sort of remove all of this logic from our on button callback. And instead be able to focus on what it is that we're actually trying to do. So the way that this works is we have our Illumina raycast into the scene, or into the Illumina scene rather, and then we take our hit count. So if we don't have a hit count at all, we've selected nothing, then we say nothing hit from raycast, and we instead of doing select entities, we'll do clear selected entities, right? That way we don't have to do that. Now, multi-select is actually up here. So if we're holding the control key and clicking multiple things, then we're technically doing multi-select. If we're not doing multi-select, we should also clear the selection, right? So clear selected entities. Right? So that is that. And then we go ahead and we sort the hits by distance. That's what we were doing before. And then we go through the hit count and take any qualifying hits, which we are skipping BVH only hits. We are only taking things that the hit callback has actually said we are using this specific type of hit information. So we've either hit a surface or we've hit a AABB base node, meaning we've hit like a base entity, and we do want to be able to select those. So if it's just a AABB hit from the BVH, we ignore those. Then we go through here. We don't need to do this selection list check anymore. We also don't need to do the add to list because that is contained over here. So we can actually do away with this entire check. And just add it to the selection. So we don't need this if at all either. All we need is to push it to a selection. Now, let's see. I guess at this point, what we would actually do here is we were pushing directly to the selection list. In this case, let's see, multi-select, we've already done this. So I guess I would just do an add to selected entities here. So editor add to selected entities states the count here is going to be 1, and then we're just going to treat this as an array by saying the address of entity. And then get rid of that. And according to this, we're only going to be taking the first thing off of the raycast list. So just as a reminder, the raycast list actually returns everything that it hit from the closest object all the way to the furthest object. And so for the raycast, we never want to take anything other than the closest thing that we've actually hit. And so that's why that breaks here. And then actually down here, is where we loop through the selections and make the actual the update to the transform, right? This here, this whole block can go, I believe. Let's see, else, selection list. Oh, right, okay. This is an important step. this bit right here where we're clearing the transform handle, whenever we clear the selected entities here, we also need to do that, right? Okay. And then no selection. Okay. So we can get rid of, I think, all of that. Let's see. Added but not used. 178. Oh. We don't need this anymore. Okay. Psycode, how did you... Oh, I see. Yeah, I see what you did there. Okay. It took me a second to register what happened. Coffee Lava, Happy New Year. Good to see you. Soul Foam, Happy New Year to you as well. How are you guys doing? Figured out instance drawing, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago. Was amazed how much performance I got. Yeah, that's something I'm going to have to investigate once I actually have instance things to draw. Hamlet RPG, good to see you as well. Memphis, hello. Hope you guys are doing all right. From Lake, good to see you as well, over on the YouTube side. Anything new in the last couple of 1.5 months? Yeah, we've been doing a lot of editor work, a lot of bug fixing, a lot of fixing stuff up. So right now we're actually working on object selection, which actually appears to be working just fine. And we're adding some stuff to the editor to make adding things A, possible, but then B, also a little bit easier. Let me make sure that the clearing actually works. So yeah, it does look like we are good to go in terms of object selection. Looks like we can select all the various things just fine. Cool. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to check was, did we actually have, when we go ahead and execute the editor command, editor select entities. Here we go. Okay, so we do have this in place. Let me check and see if that actually works. So what should happen is when I go to add that entity, it should automatically select it. So we'll go into editor mode here, and I'm going to look right at where that should spawn. And then we'll do editor add a model, barrels shadows of Illumina. Okay, let's see. Oh, did I screw up the manifest? No entry called barrels exit. What did it? I renamed it, didn't I? I might have done. Oh, right. I called it barrels model, which I don't think is going to work. That was one thing I wanted to check. So I wanted to call this, and if I quote this, will that work? No. Okay, so the console command needs a little bit of a change because it does not split the string with quotes in mind. Okay. So I suspected that that was the case. Really? Okay. Delete. Okay. So let me actually see. Oh, right. I actually started doing some other work in here, which I don't necessarily want to go over because I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but I should have stashed this change and I didn't think about that. Okay, so whenever we do a on exec. I guess we need to do parse. This one. Okay, so down here. Oh, here we go, right here. A to-do. Go figure. All right, let's close the asset manifest for a second. Okay, so we can't use the string split, right? That's not going to actually give us what we want. Unless maybe we extend that. Maybe we extend our string split to also allow for quotes. So far, that's tempting, actually. That might actually be a better way to fix it. Trim entries, include empty. I feel like maybe another option is due here, but how many places am I actually using string split? Oh, not that many. Just in tools main and the debug console, looks like in console. And Illumina scene. Okay, you know what? I'm going to add that enhancement here. So what we want to do is we want to say B8, how do we want to word this? I basically don't want to split on quotes. Maybe I should say escape quotes? Escape strings? Yeah, we'll call it escape strings. So param escape strings if a double quote is run across, don't split spaces inside it. I think that makes sense. Okay, so k-string C. All right, so B8 escape. Did I call that escape strings? Yeah, okay. It's a little bit weird of a name, but I can always rename it. Okay, so found delimiter finalized string. Okay, so essentially what this does is it goes through and searches for the delimiter, whatever that may be. Oh, you know what? I probably should say don't split delimiter inside it, right? Which is usually a space, but not always a space. So essentially, if whenever we run across the delimiter, we create a new string and add it to the list in this dynamic array for these strings here. And then, of course, we have the entry count, and we increment it and all that stuff. So if we have not done that, then essentially all we do is we add it to the current length of the current string. So I think the only thing we actually need to do here is to have a B8, and we'll just say in string, and we'll default that to false. And we will say if C delimiter and let's see, not escape strings or not escape strings or, well, I guess the delimiter is unless the delimiter is a quote, that's not really going to be a problem, right? So I guess we have to say, if not in escape strings, or if we are in escape strings, not in the middle of a string. Right. Then we'll go ahead and do this. Otherwise, down here, we can say if C equals a double quote, then in string equals not in string. There's one more. Oops, that needs to be a single quote here. There we go. Let's see. The other thing that we're going to have to take into account is whether or not we actually want to include the quote, which I'm going to say we don't by default. So we're going to do an else here and put these in there. Whoops. And put these in there. Right? So that we skip that. And then that should be it, I think. One more thing. What if we have escaped double quotes? So I guess we can say we'll do this. We'll do previous as that, and then when we get ready to go here, we'll do, let's see, we have a continue. We'll do previous equals C here. And then when we have a continue here, we'll do previous equals C here as well. So that we always have the current and previous character. Now, we can say if we have encountered a quotation mark that is not escaped, right? So we can say and previous is not equal to backslash. That way, if we have a escaped double quote in the middle of a string, we don't treat that as part of the string. I think that will probably do it for us. So that's going to bust some things. Maori, first-time chatter, welcome. How are you doing? I am good, thank you for asking. Appreciate that. Let's see. Last year I went heavy on math, physics, engine dev. This year I'll go hard in game dev with DirectX 11 plus C. Do you have any cool resources for DirectX? I don't, unfortunately. Last time I did anything serious in DirectX, it was DirectX 9. So it's been a minute for me. I've toyed around with DirectX 10 and 11, but that's nothing more than that. However, we are going to be learning that here live on stream at some point. So take that for what you will. Be working with 2D, so nothing crazy regarding rendering. Light work on the engine side. Okay, yeah, that should be pretty straightforward then. I wouldn't think there'd be too much crazy requirements there. I don't know how people writing code to these huge code bases. I mean, practice, right? Experience. All those things help you. Yeah, it's just lots of reading, lots of studying code for sure. Let's see. Doing okay. Pivoting to learning Bevy just in case I can't brew up my engine in time. Your videos teach me a lot, so thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm glad to help. Hope you're having a good day with your development so far. I appreciate that. Yeah, I am so far. Why'd you make a separate B32 type as well as B8? Because there are certain, well, let's just call it what it is. Windows has a B32, like a 32-bit Boolean type that they use in some of their older APIs. And so the B32 was to also be able to represent that sort of using my own type versus theirs to separate that out. But yeah, they do have certain things within their API where their Booleans are 32 bits for some reason, which is nothing more than an integer really, but that's why. So the B8 is really just there for everything else that doesn't use that. Didn't you say you already had a way to select things? I remember something like 2 years ago. Yes. So we had something put in place in the test bed a couple of years ago, and we were able to leverage a good portion of that. But the way that we actually select things has changed drastically. So the old way that we did it when we first put it in was basically just brute force checking against every object in the scene. Versus actually having like a bounding volume hierarchy and doing it that way, the efficient way. So we've put in a lot of work to make that a lot more efficient in how we select. And also, we didn't used to have triangle specific selection, which we now do. So it's also, it's more efficient and more accurate than it used to be. Of course, Windows does that. Yeah. Vulkan does that in a few places too. I think they do, actually. Yeah. Have you seen the trailer for Order of the Sinking Stars, the new John Blow game? Yes, I have, and it looks awesome. I can't wait for it to come out. I for sure will be grabbing that 100%. All right. Let's see. So this is, I feel like we ought to do that here. Oops. So let's see, where else? Console. Okay, we knew about that one. So that is where we actually needed it. So that's good. That to-do is solved. Debug console also has it. And what is that actually for? Let's see. Console consumer rights. Create a new copy of the string. Try splitting new lines. Make sure. This is splitting by new lines. This one I'm going to say false. We don't actually need that one there. That's splitting by new line, not spaces, so we don't really care about string continuity there. Okay. So I think we should actually be able to do this now. And if I pull up the manifest, we should now be able to load barrels model in quotes like that and have it work. Whoops, what was that? Error. Oh, Illuminacine has one too. This is for parsing tags. I'm going to say false on this one. That's parsing tags out of the configuration file. Looks like we have one more. I'm also going to say false on this one. Tags should not have spaces. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this. And we'll load up a scene. Move over here to the origin. Hopefully this spawns correctly. And I called this thing barrels model, right? So that's actually, you guys can see that? Yeah, you can. Okay. So we are going to do let me go back here. So we're essentially going to execute this, right? So this is going to be, we're going to say barrels entity, and then barrels model. All right, and then we don't technically need a string around this guy. So we're going to say here, editor, add model, and we're going to do barrels entity is what we're going to call it. And then the asset name is barrels model. And then shadows of Illumina. Boom. Loaded. Sweet. Okay. So it looks like there might be some issues with the materials. I've had to tweak some of these manually because of the way that he set up the materials. These are some of the Kenny assets. But the important part is that it actually loaded and it accepted the string that we had. Let's see, do we not have... let's see, where is it? So you can see here it loaded all of our submeshes. And selection, barrels entity, right? So the actual selection, the entity name actually retained the space as well. And then you can see here, this is sort of the raw breakdown of how it actually interpreted the string, right? Or the arguments, actually. This is, I probably ought to modify the way that this outputs this. Because it's a little harder to see here. I should probably put quotes in each of the arguments or something like that. But yeah, it looks like it did the splitting correctly. And actually saved the object. So I'm gonna write this out and exit. And we're gonna look up into the zone file, the scene file, and we can see here, there it is. It created a new entity with barrels entity with the space in there, using the asset name barrels model with the space. So that is good. That actually wasn't as big of a pain in the butt to put in as I thought it might be. So that's good. All right. So the general idea here is that this is the backbone of how we're actually going to add models to the scene, or add any type of entity to the scene, right? We've just done the one for model, but I'm also going to make commands for adding a spawn point, adding, a light, things like that. And so, the same process essentially is going to be repeated. It's really just a matter of... there is one more thing I want to test. So in here in the logic, I actually had put whether or not we actually have an entity selected or not. And if we have an entity selected, then it should automatically assign the created entity as a child of that selection. So I'm going to actually remove this one more time. And I'm going to go in and load this up one more time. And let's see, I'm going to select, what do I want to select? I guess I could select this cube, right? Or maybe I can do, you know what, let's actually select this tree thing here. We'll select this tree. And so since I have that selected, I should be able to then say, editor, add model. We're going to call that barrels entity. The asset name is going to be barrels model, and then shadows of Illumina is the package name. And it should auto-parent it. Did it do it is the question. So it's automatically selected it. Looks like it's placed it here. So let's do editor select parent. And it did. It looks like it. Anyways, it did select that as the parent. The only thing is, like, if I move this, aha, okay, I see what's happened. So it did spawn it technically over here. But you'll notice when I move that transform, this guy then snapped to its parent, right? So if I move that, around, it kind of follows its parent around, which is fine. I just need to, I probably need to have something that marks it. How do I get that to, I wonder why it didn't immediately move over to here. I wonder if I need to like mark its transform as dirty. So when we add the model, we do create, I think I actually did, when I did add model, we do create transform invalid, right? But we do have the parent transform here. So when I do add model, we init base entity. And then if the transform is invalid, we do a transform create. Otherwise, we set the transform. So when we do a transform create,
you dingus,
does it actually mark it as dirty? I don't think it actually does. It's not. Okay. And it's not by default because the defaults of a new transform are not technically dirty, right? Because we create everything with reasonable defaults, 0 position, identity rotation, 1 scale. And I don't think we actually have a way to automatically flag it as dirty. I don't think. So we might actually have to have a way to do that. Okay, yeah, we're going to need a way to do that. And so essentially what that means is like if we do a transform, like some sort of set on a transform, right? This will always call dirty list add, right? So essentially what we need to do is we need a way to say, hey, regardless of what you think internally, this transform is actually dirty, flag it as such. So I think after the clone, let's go ahead and do void k transform mark dirty. And then it'll be k transform, right? And here we'll just put in the notes that forces the transform to be dirty, thus forcing a recalculation on the next update. Parameter transform the transform, to flag as dirty, and then it has no return type. Okay, so we need this. Let's go to clone, and then we'll just put this right below that. And, all we're going to do here is just, I guess maybe we should probably validate it. Do we do that elsewhere? I guess we could probably just do this, right? Minus the position set. So when we come in here, we'll just do all this good stuff, right? So we'll say we want to validate the transform. warn if it's invalid. If it's not, then all we're going to do is add it to the dirty list, right? We're not actually going to change anything. We're just going to add it to the internal dirty list so that it gets updated on the next, or it gets recalculated on the next update. So what that means is then we can come over here to right here. Whoops, a little bit further back. When we add the model, we can also flag its transform as dirty. So immediately flag its transform as dirty, so it gets recalculated on the next frame. But we only need to do that if it has a parent. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm actually going to do, I'm going to extract this out to Boolean. So we're going to say B8 has parent, and that's going to be equal to the D array length being anything greater than 0. And then we can just say here has parents, and then also here if has parent, and then we'll do whoops, k transform mark dirty, and then we'll do oh, I'm gonna actually have to get that, aren't I? So I'm gonna have to do Illumina scene get entity transform state edit scene, and then the entity is going to be new entity. There we go. Okay. So that should fix that problem. Oops, I didn't shut that off beforehand. I really need to fix hot reloading at some point as well. Let me just rebuild that to make sure it's good. Okay. So, unfortunately, that means I have to type that long-ass string again. But it is what it is. So we're going to be solving that problem here shortly. All right. So I want to come back over here to this tree, and we're just going to select that, and I'll just leave that movement up so that you guys can see it. And we'll do editor add model, and then we'll do barrels entity, barrels model, and shadows of Illumina. And now you can see that it automatically snapped there and I didn't have to do anything. So that is pretty cool. We actually have that working the way that it should. So essentially we follow this same recipe for any other type of entity. And in fact, I think there's part of this that we can actually extract out. So we could probably extract out this portion to a function, just call it, right? Passing this has parent. And I guess, yeah, there's not really a whole heck of a lot we can do about extracting this portion out to a different function, but it is what it is. Okay, let's see. What is your ideal roadmap / order for learning C, C++? Learn C first, then learn C++. C++ is vastly more complicated than C, and it's kind of a superset of C. You can think of it that way. So if you have a solid grasp and understanding of C, it'll make learning C++ a heck of a lot easier. Wrapping your head around the way that pointers actually work, things like that. Because C++, especially modern C++, tries to get you away from those things, which I fully disagree with. But yeah, also don't learn C++. I would say that as well, but with an asterisk, right? I think learning C++ is a good thing because you'll learn what not to use, right? But yeah, that's that would be my answer there, is learn C first and then move to C++. And you might find that you actually just prefer C more. Would it make sense to have add model take the transform... Wait, to make the transform dirty if the parent is not invalid? I guess we could do it that way, right? We could do, actually, technically, you bring up a good point, actually. There's actually an even better place we could do that. In eliminate scene add model, and for every type of entity, there's this init base entity, which is what actually stands up the transform. This is probably actually where that belongs, to be completely honest. So let's see. Parent is here. Entity add child to the parent if it exists. Actually, that probably is where it needs to be. You know what? I don't even need to do this at all. This should actually be done by the transform system. So when we set the parent of a transform, we should do it then. And actually, that's where the bug is, now that I think about it. So this, really the fix is going to be dirty list add states T. Thinking about it. I still think it's valuable to have that externally, just to sort of force it, but I think that's actually the fix. Now that you mention it, that's a really good point. I just needed to drill down a little bit further. So technically speaking, I could just put this back, actually. I'll bet it works still the same way. Let's find out. You're on the right path. And I suspect this is going to do everything we needed to do. So let's go over here. We'll select this tree. And I'll leave this up. And do editor add model barrels entity barrels model, and then shadows of Lumina. Hey, what do you know, that worked. It's a heck of a lot simpler, for sure. Yeah, good call. Good call. It wasn't exactly where you were thinking, and it wasn't even where I was thinking it was going to be, but actually, yeah, that was just a bug in the transform system, technically. At least I would say stay away from STL till later, yes. 100% agreed. Or permanently, you know. Do you ever plan on Kohi ever having a scripting language? I don't have any plans as such, but I've thought about it a little bit. I don't think so, no. That's the reason we have hot reloading, but we'll see. Do you embed assets at all? What do you mean by embed assets? I like C++ as a language because it makes it much easier to abstract out manual memory management, but I've been moving more towards C because the control is more explicit. Exactly. Yeah. C is more explicit for everything, I think. C++ really only has a couple features that I occasionally miss, and it's very occasionally, and I've learned to live without them. It would be constant expression for compile time things. And then in some cases, operator overloads for like math functions. And then very, very seldom scope destructors would be handy for like logging or for performance monitoring. But that's like not even something that is a huge deal. You could actually just have a begin and an end, and not have to worry about that. Game assets like models and textures, are they embedded into the executable? No, they are not. So right now, the plan with that is actually, I'm going to pull this up just to make it a little bit easier to visualize. So right now, the way that it's organized is we have sort of the K app here, and then we have this all these assets here of the different types, right? And then they have their source, which is, what you might think the source is, the OBJs or the FBX or whatever you have. Or, for images, it's going to be, your JPEGs, your PNGs, things like that. And so those get converted to our proprietary format and are referenced by the asset manifest, which is here. And so the plan for this is, while these things all exist on disk for now, ultimately what's going to happen is we are going to use this manifest to take all of those things and roll them up all into one essentially huge binary blob with a lookup table. And it's going to be basically a huge file per package, right? So this is the game package. We have a couple of other packages for some of our core engine assets and things like that. But essentially, we're going to have these large binary blob packages with lookup tables in them, and we're going to get our assets that way. And then it'll be for release builds, right? So when we package a game for release, we'll build those asset packages, and that will be what the runtime, the release runtime actually references. Let's see. Seams show repeated pattern when viewing from sky high. Can it be avoided? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Oh, I think you're talking about, I think I actually know what you mean. You're talking about the pattern of the water, right? Can it be avoided? Yeah, you can use a better texture, for example. Our water plane is super simple. So we just have, just a couple of textures that aren't all that large. You could use larger textures. There's plenty of other things that we could do. But we're really only ever going to be looking at it from about, this distance. And there's going to be other things that we can do to it to help alleviate some of that. So I'm not really too worried about that for now. We're going to have things to break up the water. We're eventually going to have foam and waves around the edges and stuff like that. So I'm not too worried about that for now. What about shaders? There's specific ones, and then the ones the engine always uses. So shaders is an example of where we have the other packages, right? So here we have in the engine itself, so in our submodules, Kohi runtime. Let me just close some of these things here. We also can have assets that come along with the engine, right? So Kohi runtime is also a package of assets. It will have a package of its own assets that'll have things like our standard fonts, some images that are standard to the engine, and our shaders, right? And so that's where that kind of stuff will live. There's one in runtime. There's one for our standard UI if we wind up using that in our runtime or our release runtime. That also has assets. And so we'll have these various different asset packages that go along with the various bits of the engine. And that's how those will be distributed. And the whole reason we did that is for this, right? So if we use a plugin, that plugin can actually have assets that come along with it, and those can be packaged up and released along with your game, and you don't have to worry about where those come from. The build process will just pick them up and roll it into your build. I hope that makes sense. What about Kohi with visual scripting like Blueprint? Yeah, I have no interest in doing that ever. um, that's just a whole can of worms. Not only to implement, but it's a huge vector for bugs, and it's just not something I'm interested in doing. It's super complicated and just not worth it, frankly. Just write the code. Makes sense if you want to allow for an external, you can have a version of add parent that doesn't do the invalidation. Could be an argument to add parent. True. I suspected I got some sort type of keylogger on my system. Oh, that sucks. A couple days ago, I had to reformat, delete everything from both my laptop and desktop. It's pain, but you don't realize how much junk you have in your PC. Useless stuff before you format. Yeah, I do get that. That's also one of the reasons I switched to Linux, though. I don't really have to worry about that as much. Operator overloading is also evil, just low-tier evil, in my opinion. Yes. Operator overloading is one of the most bastardized things in C++, for sure. The whole cout example that they use, for streams and stuff like that. It's terrible. That's not what I'm talking about. When I talk about I miss those, it's really so that I could just say, this structure type times this structure type actually does a thing. That kind of stuff for like math libraries. But other than that, I'd look really hard at it and be like, does this really need an operator overload? Probably not. Wouldn't it be easier to always use WAD if you want hot reloading? Just append to the end of the file and then repack fully the next compilation. Code complexity wise, yeah, I mean, maybe we're going to experiment with some formats once we get closer to that point. But for now, it's easier to just have this stuff on disk. Eventually, we are going to be writing a utility that generates this file for us, so I don't have to input all this crap by hand. So we're going to be coming up on that sometime shortly. Overload the plus op to dereference pointer and watch chaos ensue. Oh, that's just evil. Friends don't let friends operator overload. Call your pals, ask them if they're overloading operators, get them help. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that I say that I occasionally miss, but I've been doing it without it for years with this project, so take that for what you will. Would a plugin just be a shared library? Yes. So plugins, we have a couple, right? So these plugins right here are just shared libraries. That's all they are. And so they have an interface, depending on what type of plugin they are. They have an interface that they need to meet with specific function names and arguments that they take, and then the plugin's just loaded in the system. So we already have all that. When you publish your game, how to prevent your game assets from being extracted and stolen. That's one of those things that's like, you can do all that, right? But like, if somebody's motivated enough, they're going to get it, right? I'm not, like, I'll do enough to kind of keep the honest people honest, but I'm not really going to worry about it too much. Those things are all going to be licensed, and if somebody tries to release a game with my assets, I'll just sue them. That's just the way it's going to work, there's only so much that you can do about it. But yeah, I mean, we'll get there. I probably, when I work out the asset packaging, I'll probably do it in such a way where I try to obfuscate it a little bit. And I probably won't show all that stuff on stream, but yeah. How do you design APIs based on need or want first, or maybe botj? I don't know what botj is. I basically just do them as I go, and I try to think about the data and how to make it as simple to use as possible. I know that's really kind of a generic response, but it's kind of a generic question too. Do you buy assets or do you use them yourself? So right now, I'm using placeholder assets for everything. I plan on making most of the assets myself, and the ones I can't make myself, I'm going to maybe purchase, but more than likely I'll probably hire an artist to actually make bespoke assets, because I don't really want to use like generic assets for stuff. Like, we're using that to test things here, but once we get past the point of testing, I'm going to remove all that stuff. Open and render doc, yoink, there's no way to prevent that stuff. You just have to use legal frameworks we have. Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, you can put stuff, you can, and I mean, even RenderDoc has some things that you can do to flag it, to say, hey, RenderDoc, I don't want you to be able to capture this, right? But like, if you download, RenderDoc's open source, you can download it and shut those flags off. But they tell you not to do that, but you can do that. So it's just one of those things where it's like, there's only so much you can do about it, and at some point, you know, it becomes more of a legal battle than trying to. You're never going to stop it like 100%. If somebody's motivated enough, they will get in there and get your stuff, right? There's no way around it. Okay. The other thing. So there's a couple things I wanted to also look into. I'm not going to get time to look at it tonight. But I wanted this last argument to be optional. And I don't believe... I don't believe we actually have the capability to have optional arguments at the moment. I think our console only takes in an argument command or an argument count that's required. So I think what I might have to do is I might have to put in min arguments and max arguments. And this is kind of going to suck because I've actually registered a bunch of these, but I essentially want to put in a minimum amount of arguments and a maximum amount of arguments. And then whenever we go into actually execute said console command, we'll just have to check it at that time. So I think the way that this works, if I remember correctly, is it just passes along a struct with all the arguments in it, which you can then get from the callback. So it shouldn't be too crazy. Let's see. So when we do this, here's the argument count. Yeah, okay, so the console command context. Here we go. So right here is what we need. So the provided argument count must match the expected number of arguments for the command. This is what actually needs to change. So to do must be in range of required number of args, right? So what we can do is we can actually extend the structure, and I'm actually going to rename this just so that I can look at all the parts of the code that are looking at it. So we're going to have min arg count and max arg count, right? And then so essentially what we need to do is we need to say if min arg count, or we should say if the arg count is less than the min arg count, or arg count is greater than, or arg count is greater than state pointer registered commands sub I max arg count, Then we just say the console command blah 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 requires argument count between blah and blah, but X was provided, right? So we can go here and say min arg count and then command max arg count. And then we're good. Right? And then, so the actual argument count that's passed along is now just going to be the arg count, the actual argument count. And then as we go through, we're going to use the actual arg counts here instead of the command's arg counts. And then, again, the actual arg counts. And it looks like we only have one more thing, which is in register. So register needs to take, we're going to call this min arg counts, and we're going to put another thing in here that says U8 max arg counts. And this is going to be min arg counts, and we'll just do this. Max arg counts, and we're going to do the minimum number of required arguments and the, whoops, I spelled that wrong. Twice, 3 times. There we go. Maximum number of required arguments, right? And then we can go to here and we can do min arg counts and max arg counts and just put those things in here. We have console command. Let's see, do have that. So we do want min arg counts equals min arg, whoops, equals min arg counts. And then max arg count equals max arg count. And that should do it for that. That's going to break a whole bunch of stuff, I'm sure. So anything that's basically doing a console command register is now going to have to be fixed. So the material system has got one. So here, min and max are both 0. No requirements for that. Texture system, it's got one as well. Again, it's going to be the same thing. I think a lot of these are actually going to be this, except our game and our editor ones. Again, kvars as well. We haven't even used our kvar system in quite a while, actually. Let's see. Where is, these are string format unsafes. Here we go. So print is always going to require 1 and only 1. Print all is going to require nothing. And then these are all going to be the same count all the way down. So we'll just keep the min and the max the same. This is actually something I've been meaning to do for quite a while. And then we're to the editor. Right? So the editor so to save the scene, we don't require any arguments for that. We don't have any for this one or this one. Selected position is going to require 3 and only 3. Same with rotation. That's going to be 4 and only 4. Scale is going to be 3 and only 3. And then add model is going to be minimum 2, max 3. And that's the reason that we're adding all this stuff, right? So when we go to execute, now that third property is going to be optional. So we're going to say if the argument count is not I guess let's say well, we should have actually figured this out before here when we go to execute it. So I'm actually going to remove that block entirely. And we're going to do instead if context argument count equals 3, then we're going to do this. Right? In fact, actually, you know what? Let's actually just simplify this even further. We'll do context argument counts equals 3. Then we'll use that. Otherwise, we will use don't we have... There it is. We'll create it using the default package name. So now we don't have to pass that third property is optional and defaults to package name application package name, right? Okay, so that actually should be, let's see, what did we miss? Oh, Illumina main has some. Forgot about these ones. These are all going to wind up being exactly the same as the one before them, so this is going to be 0, 0, 2 for that one. Because up till now, these numbers have always been, you know, we just have the required number of arguments and that's it. We don't have arguments that are optional. So all of these numbers can match and give us exactly what we need. Cool. All right, so let's go and run this. Move this way back over. Load this up. And again, I guess we don't actually need to test out the transform thing, so I'm just going to create it right here. And we're going to do editor add model. And now we're only going to do barrels entity and barrels model. And it still works, right? So yeah, this is basically the way that we're going to create all of the commands for all of the various different types of entities, and then we'll build a UI on top of this. Okay, cool. Happy with that. Let's see. Render dog for the big dogs. Just thought of an even bigger evil operator overload. Overload exclamation point to dereference pure evil. Side code, that is just wrong. Let's see. Godot has an encryption key to encrypt the game's pack file, but that gets stored in the executable so people can find it. Exactly, right? So like, there's things that you can do, but it's only going to go so far. Like, that's got to be stored somewhere that people can access it, because otherwise how you get to it, right? See the VOD later. Got to go make some food. Nice seeing you. Good luck with your future game development plans. I appreciate that. Good to see you as well. Overload the ampersand operator to return a random uint64. Ooh, that's just... no. That's a big bunch of nope. Anyway, that's going to do it for tonight's stream. We made some good progress, so I'm going to commit this stuff and push it up. And then I guess on the next stream, we'll continue building out our editor. I'm probably going to fill in some more of these off camera because you guys kind of see how these are going to come together. So I don't necessarily need to do all of them on camera. I can actually save a little bit of that camera time for maybe building out some of our editor UI to actually, trigger some of this stuff to happen automatically for us so that we don't have to type it in the command console. All right. So with that said, I'm going to find somebody to raid really quickly. And I think I actually see who I'm going to raid already, but I'm just going to scroll just for a second. Just bear with me 1 second. I want to do one more thing. Okay. Yeah, I think I see who I'm going to. I see who I'm going to raid. Okay. All right. So let me try one more thing because I want to see if I can set one up for the YouTube side as well. I keep forgetting to actually do this, but let's see, where was that? Here we go. Is there a... Oh, okay. Actually, I can set up the raid to happen the same way on both sides, which is cool because he's actually streaming on both. So that works. All right, so we are going to raid Moonwood Games, both on the YouTube side and the Twitch side. He is making a roguelike RPG, and it is using blackjack as the battle mechanic. So it's kind of a cool concept. So we're going to go and check and see what he's up to on stream. And yeah, I just want to say thank you guys again for all the support tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Golden Kappa Train was pretty cool to have as well. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. If you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate a follow either on the Twitch side or the YouTube side. Trying to grow the channel and all that. But yeah, anyways, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.